If you remember a previous video that we did a drag and drop previous video in, PowerPoint. And so what we have here is another project where we're going to use the drag and drop, but we're not going to really use it to be able to tell whether something is a match of something. Well, it's in a way it's going to be a match, but it's going to be kind of an invisible match. We want to make a puzzle sort of game to where you kind of put the pieces together and you recreate the picture. So we're going to use this pretty much the same code that we did last time for the first drag and drop that we did, but we're just going to alter it a little bit, and we're going to use different game sort of analogy or functionality here in this scenario. So if you're ready, go ahead and power up PowerPoint and let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is understand what I'm doing here is more of a puzzle game. So I'm going to need some sort of picture that the person puts together. And in this one, it's going to be all about aliens. And so maybe this is the image I want them to put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this picture. And now what I'm going to do is I notice how this picture has this huge frame, meaning the background was taken out, but the background is still being detected. So what I want to do is go ahead and I'm going to crop this. So first I hit format, and then I'm going to hit crop, and then I'm going to go to crop shapes, and then I can use any of these shapes to crop it. So let's say like I'll use this rectangle. I'll use a circular rectangle. Now, once I do that, it looks like nothing happened. But if I hit crop again, you'll then see the crop structure as that shape that I put. So all I need to do is drag this in, and I'm going to hold down shift and drag the edge so it drags from all angles until it gets to the edge of the ship. And then I can go ahead and drag individual sides. And then I'll deselect. Now when I select my image, the box is a lot smaller. That's kind of the first thing I want to do. Now the second thing I want to do is be able to break this up into different regions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this. So let's say like 5 times or even 6 times. So I'm going to say Control D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm going to select all of these here. Now, after selecting all of those, I go here to align. I'm going to align left, and then I'm going to align center, and then I'm going to align top so that they're all back to this particular position. Go here to the View tab. So I'm going to click on this View tab up here, and I'm going to put on the ruler. And if you look up here, you will see this ruler, and then you look over here and you'll see this ruler here. Now, while still in this View tab, we're going to go ahead and click on Guides. We also have this grid here that we're able to use. So go ahead and click on Grids and Guides. Now, with my image right there in the center, and after I've duplicated all these images, it's right there in the center. Now what I want to do is break this up in, let's say, like 6s, like I said before. So I'm going to use these guides here. As you can see, I have this guide that's in the middle here, and this cross like makes its crosshairs. Now going up, I'm going to go up to about maybe 2. I'm going to go up 2 blocks here. So I'm going to create 4 blocks per image. Holding down the Control key and scrolling the middle mouse button, you can zoom in to be able to see these grids a little bit more. When you look here at the view, and then you look here where it says grayscale, you can change the background, you can change the highlights, that sort of stuff, as you can see here, for the image to make it more easier for you to be able to see what you're doing. You can easily go back to the colored view by clicking on that part right there. So I'm going to go back to the view, and then I'm going to go to grayscale, and I clicked on this black view right here, and this is just changing the selected object. This is not really, so that way I can see my grid plus my object a lot easier. So from this point, what I want to accomplish is breaking this up in 4s like we talked about before. And the way I'm going to do that is by first dragging these grid marks and duplicating these grid marks where I want the cut to be. So I'm going to get close to this grid line right here until I can see two little arrows going opposite directions. Then I'm going to hold down the control key, and then I'm going to drag it all the way up, and I'm going to snap it to each grid like that. I'm going to do the same thing to this middle one. Hold down control and drag it over to where it is from the end here. But see, I need this to be a little bit more even, because as you can see, it's a part of this box and part of these three in order for me to get 6 there. But I think, yeah, so we're going to have to move our image around in order to make sure it's in the right spot. So I'm going to push this back over a little bit, and I'm going to drag this one. I can leave that one there. I'm just going to expand my image so that way it's even within all of these squares. So I have an even number of squares. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. That will be 1 block, 2 blocks, and then I have 3 blocks, but I have this extra block here. So I want to bring that about here. Now, as I'm doing this, you will notice that I have all of my pictures still selected. So that way, as I'm moving this, I'm moving all of my images. The only thing I need to do is actually center this. So if I go back here, I need to recenter it. Align. So I clicked on align the slide, so that way it's going to select all of these, and it's going to align to the middle of the slide. And then align center. So that way it's not aligning to the objects, it's aligning to my entire slide. Now, because we expect things to align to the object, what we want to do is go here and put this back to align to selected objects. So now that we have this centered again, we've got to make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And so we have 3 blocks ready to be able to be cropped. So now all I need to do is go ahead and make sure that line is there, the center line is here, and I'm going to hold down control and drag myself another line towards the bottom there. And I do need to drag my images above that so it's all fitting into that nice grid. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag myself this center line over. So I'm holding down control and I'm dragging that over to there. So that way we have this block and this block. And then I'm going to drag this center line over to here. And then I'm going to duplicate the center line by holding down control and dragging it all the way over here to the end. So I have a line here, 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 and here. Oh, nope, no, not one there. There we go. Now I have one there. And I have a line here in a center and then all the way at the bottom. Now, with that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and select the first one on top. So I'm going to just select that one, and I'm going to name this A1. Hit enter. From A1, I can now just drag this over. I'm sorry, not drag it over. I'm going to crop it. So I'm going to select A1. First, I have to deselect everything, then select A1. And then I can go ahead and crop it. And now I want a regular crop. I don't want this curved crop. So I am going to select a regular rectangle for my crop, and then I can go ahead and crop that. And I'm just going to drag it all the way up to my grid lines until it snaps. As you can see that grid line snapping, it turns red over there. And then I can drag this one to this grid line, which it snaps, as you can see. And then I can drag this one to this grid line, so on and so forth. I just want to make sure they snap to the grid line. So from here, all I need to do is go to the next one. So this next one under is going to be A2. And if you look at this, I'm doing this almost like Excel, where I type A1 going all the way across, and B1, 2, and 3 going all the way across there. Select it. And I'm going to hit crop on that one. And each one of these has this sort of crop, so I'm going to have to go ahead and keep changing those back again. So now all I need to do here is hit crop again. Oh, let me change this back to rectangle, then hit crop, and then I just drag these over to the crop lines. There's the top, there's the side. Now, because I already have everything aligned, I can go ahead and go back to view, and I can turn this back to color just so I can see what's happening here. So I have this one and I have this one. Now all I need is this one over here for the top, A's. And you notice I'm using the selection pane because the selection pane puts things in order. It tells you what's on top. Whatever's on top is at the highest level where, you know, it's above everything else. So this is why I can just go down the line based off of the selection pane while I'm editing this. So I'm at A3, which means it's going to be this one here. And then all I need to do is go to format, and I'm going to crop this. I need to change the crop shape to a rectangle. And then I'm going to crop it and then move it. Now I'm being extra careful here not to move the images at all, because you don't want things to be off-centered or anything. And then I just need to do the same for the bottom half. So the bottom half is going to be B. So B1. And I'm making sure that it aligns with that grid that I created. And it's pretty much the same through all of them. So I guess what I'll do is, you can fast forward it, but I'm just going to go through the motions of doing this just in case, you know, some people don't get it until now. So maybe it's better to see me do it. So I'm just going to keep on doing it until I finish. And you can fast forward it because I'm pretty much doing exactly the same thing over and over again. So I have this other picture here that I don't even need because I already, if I remove this, you see, now I have the full picture. So if I go to these eyes over here and I remove them, you'll see how the picture has come together. So now that we have all of this set up, I can actually remove this picture here. And I have my button finished, so I'm just going to drag this over here or wherever. Doesn't really have anything on it right now. Now, after I have this here, I now want to create the area in which they will be dragged. But the great thing is, I already have the area based off of what I've already created. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, once I disperse these things, they need to go back into this position, right? So I need something that says, hey, that's the position they need to go in. Now, I can easily do that in code, but it's even easier to make a space that it can relate to. And the best space that it can relate to are these current spaces that we have here. So we're going to need a way that the user knows that they need to place the image in this particular order or spot. You know, they may get the order wrong, but we need a particular spot that they could place it in. So we need some sort of grid for them to know that these are the rectangles that you'll be using as a guide. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our images by dragging over all of them. Select all of those, and then I'm going to go to the Home tab, and then I'm going to go to Outline, and I'm going to choose a black outline, and then from there, actually I could just leave it like that, and I have my grid. But I'm not going to keep this grid this way. I'm only doing this as a guide, because really what I want to do is replace on top of these the rectangles. So I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to Shapes, and I'm going to select the rectangle. I'm just going to double click to create a rectangle. I'm going to scroll out just a little bit and then drag this over here at the edge. And then I'm going to scroll in. And over. Then I'm going to drag this down here. I want it to match. I want it to be inside those black lines, actually, because the black lines represent the outer part of the image. Now all I need to do is select this one, duplicate, hit Control D twice, and I'm just going to push this over here and push this one over here. It doesn't really have to be exact, because then I'm going to select all of these by holding down Shift and selecting them. I'm going to go to Arrange, still in the Home tab, go to Arrange. I'm going to align them to the top. I'm then going to align them, I'm going to distribute them horizontally, so that way they kind of make the same amount of space evenly. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the arrow key to scooch it over. Because I know these are the exact same size, I don't need to really worry about whether it's off a little bit or not. We can see how this one kind of overlaps a little. We want that line right there to be kind of like this line. We don't want that line too thick. We want it to overlap enough to where it becomes one line. Now all I need to do is hold down Shift and select these three. And then I'm going to hold down Control and drag them down. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift at the same time while I drag them so it stays in line, until I see that snapping. You see those red lines? They snap into place. Now all I need to do is name these. So again, we have A1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to do that same thing to all of these here. I'm going to select it, A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3. I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back when I'm done. So what I did was I named all of these A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, and all I did was I added an underscore and an end to be able to decipher that these are the area, this is the area where I want the image to be set. You know, this is my grid, and these are the images that are going to be dragged. So the one thing I can do to make sure I have the right things named is just turn off these eyes here. Now I can see that all that's left is the image that I'll be using. At this point, all I need to do is get rid of these grids here. So I'm going to highlight all of this. That's all selected. And then what I'm going to do is my shape outline, I'm going to say no outline. All right, so I'm going to select by holding Control all of my ends. So holding Control and selecting all of those. I'm going to hit Control G to group them. Now I want to go ahead and create my grid. So while they're all grouped and selected, I'm going to go here inside of the Home tab, inside the Shape Fill, and I want to remove the fill. Then I'm going to add a shape outline. So I'm going to choose the weight, make it a little thick, and then in the shape outline, I'm also going to go here to dashes, and I can choose to create them to look like dashes. And then shape outline, and then I'm going to change the color to black. Now we have our grid. Now the next thing I need to do is go ahead and ungroup these. So I'm going to select this group over here. I'm going to right click on the edge of this group. And then I'm going to go here to group and ungroup it. So that way they're no longer in a group, but they're still selected. So now all I need to do is drag all of these down by selecting any one of those and dragging it below the B3 of my standard images. Now I want to put these grid in order, because if you see when I select the first part of the grid, it's selecting this bottom one and it's going in the improper order. So I want to take this A and I'm going to drag it on top and put it in the proper order. So now we have everything set up. And the way you can tell, if I hit A1, if I select A1 here, you'll see how that line goes along with that grid. If I select A2, that line goes with that grid, and so on and so forth. So this is why you have to be careful about moving things around after you're getting things set up. And the reason why that's important, because that we're going to be using that grid to be able to determine where the boxes are supposed to go. We could have used the entire slide if we wanted to, but we're just using this because maybe there may be a time where you want different images, like the entire slide to be different zones of a map or something like that. So this is one way we can do that. So now let's go ahead, in the next video we're going to go focus on the code and make all this stuff work. I'll see you then.